Yeah, no, circling back to your question about like why is fitness so heavily focused on for like the what was the overarching question? Like natty or not versus
yeah, because like in a bunch of other sports, there are freaks. You know what I mean? I mean, at the top levels of sports, you look at, I mean, everyone's going to say that everyone in the NFL's on drugs, but guys at the top level there, like if they did come to fitness, they'd blow motherfuckers out of the water.
Like Aaron Donald.
Everyone, people think he's on a lot of drugs too. You know what I mean? But these are also athletes at the top level, and I think it's different because a pro bodybuilder isn't necessarily the top of genetic athleticism.
Yeah,
they're the top of genetic propensity for muscle gain.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that they can sprint a 4.2, 4.3, or 4.4. You know what I mean? And I'd imagine that the athletes, like for example, I'm gonna use Russ Swole again. Sorry, Russ. But Russ was a former football player that got injured. He had goals of playing professional football. The only reason the guy chose to do powerlifting is because he got injured.
Phil Heath was a college basketball player.
He's a college basketball player. You know what I mean? So
I do
think different.
I think that, so I think that the athletes are always going to do the best. The best athletes are going to always do the best. And what happens is though, like what gets really weird is when the athletes start to mess around with drugs and they do too good. And that's when people are like, all right, there's something going on here.
Like what do you mean? Like,
so, who was that Yankees pitcher who, like, in his final years on the Yankees was pitching better than he ever has before at like 40 something? Was it? I don't know. Was it? Oh God!
I mean, he had
Roger Clemens.
Yes.
Yes. Oh. Roger Clemens.
Okay.
That was really suspect. You're talking straight up. This guy's an absolute monster of a pitcher. At his old ass age, was starting to pitch some of the best baseball of his entire life.
Yeah.
That's when things get weird.
He's known as a power guy too.
Yeah. Yes. And it's like, shit, like the drugs are working too well. Like we got to scale it back at that level. That would be my speculation. And so you see guys like, holy shit, Barry Bonds, unbelievable athlete, unbelievable baseball player. Shit, he's getting way too good at this. Like way, way, way too good. You know, I mean, I think, and most people think like he's going to the Hall of Fame before the steroids. I think 100%.
Yeah.
Right. I don't want to like continually speculate athletes that haven't been caught or been caught, but I think there's something to be said about like these incredible athletes in the late stages of their careers, you know, dabbling with some peptides, dabbling with some GH, maybe low dose testosterone, and absolutely crushing, you know.
An interesting thing is sometimes some people will take it just to catch up to the genetic anomaly. So that's interesting. You know?
Right. That's when it's like,
because Barry Bonds is like multiple generation baseball player.
Oh,
like
yeah.
He's, you know, and he was unbelievable. And it appears that he took stuff probably later in his career. It looked like he was already on his way to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But imagine me or anybody else just trying to take something just to try to catch up to some of that.
And that's, I think, the biggest issue that people have is like, you're actually not naturally as good as the other guy.
I wonder what makes us admire that. Like, why would you admire somebody? It'd be like admiring just like, oh, I was born in New York. I have zero control over being born in New York.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of people just assume that if somebody does look amazing or is performing in some way that they probably did something to get there, and they don't want to believe that it could just be a genetic superiority to themselves. So like the people who end up abusing the shit the worst are the people who are trying to catch up and compensate in general. Like I've seen some people that are competing at like local, just like their first show, and they're using as much shit as a guy who's like a top pro, if not more sometimes, to try and, because they just think, oh, I don't have the secret, and they must just be doing more than me. And in reality, they're just weren't meant to do that activity. Yeah.
And, you know, the interesting thing about bodybuilding and this fitness space is that when it comes to trying to aspire to be like someone in this space or someone that you idealize in this space, for most people, well, not for most people, but like to try to become a really good basketball player, you got to get on the court and fucking train that. You can't take testosterone and fucking growth hormone and shit to get there. But this specific thing, right? If someone wants to try to catch up to that genetic elite, well, I can train a lot and maybe I can use a bunch of shit to do that. There's no other sport that really has that. You can take as much shit as you want, but you'll never be a Barry Bonds. You'll never be a fucking Aaron Donald. You got to be an athlete for that. But for this, you can have that. You could potentially, in your mind, have that look if you hop on a bunch of shit. And that's what's so weird about this. Power Project family, how's it going? Now, we talk about sleep all the time on the podcast because it's one of the biggest things that helps you with your health and fitness, your recovery, your muscle gain, your fat loss, everything. That's why we've partnered with 8 Sleep for such a long time now, because the technology behind the mattress allows you to track your heart rate, the amount of times it takes you to fall asleep, your tosses and turns, your heart rate variability. It changes its temperature through the night based off how you sleep, but not only yourself, but maybe your partner on the other side of the bed. It is an amazing mattress. Andrew, how can they learn more?
Yes, head over to 8sleep.com/powerproject. That's 8 spelled out, EIGHT, sleep.com/powerproject. Along with more information, you guys will actually save $150 off of your entire order automatically. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
Well, look, if you think about basketball as if we were just to collect every basketball move that a player makes in a day, that has a recovery toll. So somebody who's not as genetically gifted, if they're able to have more basketball moves per day, they can give themselves a leg up. And that would be where something like literally any androgen could help them with that. And so, you know, instead of thinking about it in like, I'm going to beat the guy that is better than me, I'm going to be able to outwork him because I'm literally not going to feel the fatigue that I would normally feel. I think that is where you could see the stark difference across all sports, actually. You can just do more. Just do more and not have the recovery costs of doing more. And that's where you can catch up. But I don't think you
think you could catch up, though.
Yeah, you think you could, but it's worth it for them. It's worth a shot, right? It's like, why not? This is my life. This is what I want to do. And the answer to why not is like, it's against the rules first and foremost. But that doesn't really matter if you can't get caught to a lot of people.
Derek, have you noticed difference or disadvantages rather of people using performance enhancing drugs? Like someone's body getting very tight. Like we've saw some pictures and some stuff of Liver King, and when you see him try to do something more athletic, he looks a lot like me. Like he's got the mobility of a trash can, I would say. And I've noticed that to be a trait of a lot of guys that take stuff. However, a lot of guys that take stuff start to become well muscled, but our boy Nsima here is well muscled, and he's very fluid, and his body has a different look than some of the people that we see. Like, yeah, here you can just tell how tight the hips are and how tight that shoulder must be just to try to throw that. So have you observed potential disadvantages? Are you aware of anything that any steroid could do to muscles that would
hinder
perhaps hinder some stuff in any way?
I think in general, a lot of people who are using this stuff are doing it not for actual real performance reasons. It's more vanity driven, the image they're trying to portray, some cosmetic perception of, you know, what is the representation of like peak masculinity and what they think to be, you know, the ideal physique to, you know, either attract women or feel superior to other men or whatever it is. And in general, oftentimes people will neglect, you know, like functional training or flexibility or mobility or whatever, striving for that because it's not they don't deem it to be a good use of time. So I don't know, like even me, when I used to teach swimming lessons, I used to be a lifeguard when I was younger. And when I was like at peak size, I would be trying to teach back crawl and my fucking delt would like smack me in the face. So I couldn't even teach the
He's like
movements.
Drowning and trying to teach at the same time.
And I'm sure you can attest to when you're like super muscled, you don't float very well. So
careful with your next words, homie. I know where you're going with this. So, why can't I float well, Derek? Is it because I'm muscled?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's
nothing to do with anything else. Calm down.
Bone density.
Bone density.
So
I got a lot of density too.
If you think about like, look, if your training is geared towards gaining muscle, then you're going to be too muscled. But if your training is geared towards your specific sport, you're going to be geared towards your specific sport. So you take testosterone and you get on your bike, you're going to be better at biking. but you're not necessarily going to be too muscled. So I guess
I don't think taking gear will inherently like wipe out your mobility necessarily,
but it could negatively impact. I mean, just if you took stuff and maybe just kind of didn't know what you're doing. We saw it with Vitor Belfort when he was young. He came in the UFC and he absolutely just dominated.
Yep.
He's high-level jiu-jitsu, but he just punched the shit out of everybody because he was so strong and just he came in and just smashed everybody. But he overjuiced himself to the point where he got himself too big and too jacked and he was kind of puffy and he actually didn't perform very well.
Hey, I know you guys enjoyed the video, so like, comment, subscribe, and head to the Power Project Discord below. Talk to y'all later.